My whole family fell apart because of one sentence. So, how does it feel to be a gold digger with a uterus? The dinner table went silent. Someone choked on their drink. And me? I just smiled calmly and replied with a sentence that left everyone speechless. I used to believe that, with enough love and sacrifice, the distance between a stepmother and a stepchild would slowly fade over time. But I was wrong. The first time I met her, she was only 11. Skinny, timid, with eyes that kept darting toward her biological mother like she was afraid she might vanish from this world. I didn't blame her. I understood. I never intended to replace her mom. I just wanted to be a reliable adult in her life. Someone patient enough to listen, calm enough to take her to the doctor at midnight, and sensitive enough not to force her to call me mom. For nearly 4 years, I was the one who got up early to make her breakfast, while her birth mother sent fast food through a delivery app and then disappeared. I signed her medical forms, went to parent-teacher meetings, planned her birthday party, the one her mom once forgot entirely. I held her through panic attacks in the middle of the night, while the woman who gave birth to her sent a single cold text. She's just being dramatic again. I thought maybe one day she'd see the truth. That family isn't just about blood, but what she said at dinner that night slapped me with a brutal truth. To her, I would always be an outsider. Some people might say, she's just a 15-year-old kid. She doesn't understand the weight of her words. But what they don't realize is, she didn't say it out of anger. She wasn't yelling or lashing out because she was hurt or forced. She smiled, softly, like she was telling a joke, like the things her mother had fed into her mind were facts, not opinions, that I was a gold digger living off men, that I was nothing more than a womb with conditions, a convenient tool for their lives. I wasn't angry about the label. What hurt me was how completely she believed it, without a shred of doubt. After all the years I tried to be her anchor, what did I get in return? A humiliating insult in front of my future in-laws. Shame that I couldn't hide, even if I tried. And my fiancé, the man I loved and respected, just sat there, stunned. He didn't defend me. He didn't push back against that venomous remark. It wasn't until after she had stormed off that he finally spoke and said I had overreacted and should apologize. Apologize? After everything I've done? After all the times I stayed silent while being treated like an afterthought? No, not this time. Because staying silent for too long teaches people that it's okay to hurt others without consequences. And me, though I may not be her mother, am not someone who will endlessly endure. I'm not looking to fight a child, but I also can't keep fighting an entire system that rewards injustice and hides cruelty under the label of family. I used to believe that if I stayed quiet long enough, kind enough, then love would eventually bloom, like some natural compensation rule of life. But that night, after the girl stormed off from the dinner table, I realized not every effort is rewarded, and not everyone wants to understand the truth. The air froze after my words. No one continued eating. My fiancé's mother, the same woman who once praised me for being thoughtful and caring, avoided my eyes. A relative sighed and muttered, "Such a shame, she's still just a kid." But no one, not a single person, asked if I was okay, if I, the one publicly insulted, needed acknowledgement, or at the very least protection from the man I was about to marry. The drive home was silent. I didn't speak. He didn't either. Not until we got back, when he finally said, "You should have let it go. She's just a kid, you know that." I turned to look at him. The man I once believed would be the strongest pillar in my life now only saw the hurt child. He didn't see me. "I've let it go for almost 4 years," I replied, my voice calm. "But have you ever asked how I felt? Have you ever told her that I was the one taking responsibility in her mother's absence?" He said nothing. I listed every little thing I had done, not to boast, but to remind him. I wasn't just a woman in love with him. I was the one holding together a stable life for a daughter he quietly expected me to care for without acknowledgement. I'm not her mother, but I've lived like one, I told him. And when a 15-year-old calls me a womb with a spending problem, the issue isn't how I reacted. The issue is that you let her believe I don't deserve respect. He said I had stooped to her level. as if I had lowered myself to match a child's cruelty. But he didn't understand. Some boundaries, if left unprotected, will be trampled forever. And that day, I simply stood up for myself for the first time. The next day, someone from his family messaged me. A younger cousin wrote, "You came on too strong, but I get it. No one deserves to be treated like that, especially someone who's done as much as you." Just one message. But it made me cry, because at least someone saw the loneliness behind the calm I tried so hard to maintain throughout that dinner. And the girl, not a single apology, not a text, not even a guilty glance. I later heard her mother even mocked me, saying, "She really couldn't handle the pressure. And she wants to be a wife?" Strangely, I didn't feel angry. I felt sad. Sad that I confused love with blind sacrifice. Sad that I let myself become the one who cleans up, not just after other people's lives, but after the damage they never even looked back to see. I couldn't sleep for 3 nights after that, not because I was angry, but because I felt abandoned. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to the fans spin above me, my heart looping one question over and over. Do I really deserve to be treated this way? I hadn't done anything wrong. All I did was respond to an insult with the truth. Bitter, yes, but still the truth. Yet instead of being defended, I was treated like an adult who had lost control. Like I was the one who shattered the fragile peace between me and his daughter. What a joke. That peace never existed. To her, I was never someone who mattered. I was a shadow, useful when needed, invisible when inconvenient. And to him, I'm starting to wonder if I was just a placeholder, a substitute for a wife he no longer had, a mother figure he could never fully control, a quiet solution not meant to make noise, and because of that, not even allowed to be upset. The truth is, I was terrified of losing them. I loved him with everything I had, so much that I forgot to love myself. I was so afraid of being seen as not good enough that I tripled my efforts. But in the end, I was still seen as the outsider. I thought I could fill the void of a missing mother with unconditional love. But in the eyes of others, I was still just an add-on. No blood, no voice. One afternoon, I sat alone in the kitchen, flipping through old photos, her birthday last year. There I was, standing next to her, holding the cake. She wasn't looking at me with hate, but she wasn't looking at me with love either. Now that I think about it, maybe that was just a happy moment created by the setting, not by real emotion, and definitely not out of gratitude. That's when I finally faced a question I'd been avoiding. If I go through with this, marry him, officially join this family, what will actually change? Will I be respected more? Or will I just be further locked into the role of the wife, the mother, the peacemaker, the one who can never make a mistake, the one who's not allowed to be tired? I don't want to spend the rest of my life just filling a void in a family that never truly accepted me. I don't want to be the reluctant, kind one, constantly swallowing my pain, sacrificing myself, only to be judged for the one time I dared to speak up. And the most heartbreaking part is, I don't know if he truly understands that. He loves me. I know that. But sometimes, love isn't enough. Not if it comes without understanding. Not if it demands I drain myself emotionally to preserve a peace that was never fair to begin with. That night, I wrote him a letter. Not to blame him, but to tell him I needed to rethink things. Not about our love, but about myself. I've ignored too many signs, and if I stay silent any longer, I'll lose the very identity and worth I've spent years trying to protect. I'm not his daughter's mother, but I'm also not an emotional punching bag, not an excuse for 2 women in her life to lash out or look past when it suits them. I deserve more than that. I left the letter on the table without saying a word. He found it while I was staying with my best friend, the only person I felt I could breathe around without being judged. I needed space, not to run away, but to stop betraying myself, over and over again. That evening, he called. His voice was a little shaky, not angry, not scolding, just one small question that weighed like a stone. "What are you thinking?" I didn't sugarcoat it. I'm thinking, if I disappeared from your lives, yours and hers, would either of you even notice the emptiness? Silence. I didn't want promises. I just needed acknowledgement that I existed, that I loved, and that I'd been hurt. The next day, he came to find me, and for the first time in 4 years, I saw him unguarded, not trying to look strong, not deflecting blame. He admitted he had relied too heavily on me, had taken everything I did as a given, and that he'd never taught his daughter how to appreciate me, not because he didn't want to, but because he was terrified of losing the only love left from his former marriage. He was afraid that if he made her see too soon, he'd lose the last fragile thread connecting them. I understood, but empathy doesn't mean unconditional acceptance. We talked for a long time. A real conversation, maybe our first. No rushed apologies. No empty hugs pretending to mean more than they did. Just truth. Sharp, raw, but real. He asked, "So, what do you want now?" And I said, "I don't want to keep being a mother to a child who doesn't need me. And I don't want to be the wife of a man who can't stand up for the woman beside him when she's being disrespected." I didn't say it out loud, but inside, I was laying 2 options on the table. Stay, if everything changed. Or leave. Quietly, cleanly, even if it shattered me. 2 days later, he and his daughter showed up at my door. She stood still, her hand gripping the edge of her hoodie. For the first time since that night, she looked at me, not with sarcasm, not with contempt, just a 15-year-old girl swallowing her pride, trying to say 2 words. "I'm sorry." I don't know what her mother said to her. I don't know if it was him who helped her see more clearly. But in that moment, when I looked into the tear-streaked eyes of the girl who once made me cry, I realized the only thing I ever truly wanted was to be recognized. Not forced affection, not obligatory bonding, just a quiet acknowledgement that I wasn't the intruder, but someone who had helped build this life. I hugged her, didn't say a word. It was a soft hug, but enough for me to feel that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't over yet. That night, he told me, "If you choose to leave, I won't stop you. But if you choose to stay, I promise you won't have to stand alone anymore." And for the first time in days, I smiled. Bittersweet, but relieved. Because finally, I didn't have to keep proving I mattered. I was no longer standing in someone else's shadow. I was stepping back into my own light. We didn't go back to our old life. We couldn't, and we shouldn't. Because after everything, I was no longer the woman who kept trying to fit in with a family that never truly felt like mine. I had changed. And if they wanted me to stay, they needed to change too. I started with the smallest things. I stopped automatically taking on every responsibility like before. When she needed someone to sign her absence slip, I told her to ask her dad. When she forgot her gym clothes at home, I texted, "I'm busy today. Next time, remember to check before you leave." I still cared, but I no longer did things on autopilot, like those duties were somehow born with my name on them, because now I understood. People rarely appreciate what they believe you're supposed to do anyway. I also began taking care of myself again. I signed up for a yoga class every Tuesday afternoon. Instead of waiting by the stove for everyone to come home, I reconnected with a few old friends. I read more books. And strangely enough, the more I stepped back from the cycle of serving, the more he and his daughter began to step toward me. One evening, I came home late. The kitchen smelled like lasagna, my favorite, though rarely made because of how long it takes. He and his daughter had made it together. When I walked in, they looked at me, not waiting for praise, not trying to impress. They just wanted me to feel that I belonged. I didn't say anything. I just smiled. Sometimes love doesn't need to be explained. Sometimes it just needs to be rebuilt, through action, from both sides. His daughter changed too. Not overnight, but it happened. Instead of avoiding me, she started asking little questions. Like, "What did you study in college?" Or, "How did you and Dad meet?" Tiny conversations, yes, but loud signs that she was starting to see me differently. Not as a mother replacement, not as an intruder, but as an independent woman in her life by choice, not obligation. I may never be called mom, and I've made peace with that. Because now I know being a mother isn't about a title. It's about the decision to love. It's about showing up again and again when someone needs you most. Even if it's never spoken aloud, love still leaves its mark. One night, while I was folding laundry, she stepped into the room. She hesitated for a second, then said quietly, "I know I was wrong that day. And I know I hurt you, but thank you for not leaving." I turned around and set the shirt down. "And thank you," I said, "for saying that out loud." Some forgiveness doesn't need an apology, but some apologies, even late, are the very first step to healing what's been broken for far too long. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if this relationship will always stay this respectful, this honest, but I know one thing for sure. I will never again lose myself just to be accepted. I will continue to love, but love with clarity. Love as someone who finally understands. Kindness is not blind sacrifice. It's the right to choose when to give and when to hold a little back for yourself. If you've ever loved someone with everything you had and still ended up being treated like an outsider, remember this. Your worth isn't measured by how much you sacrifice. It's measured by your ability to walk away when love starts making you forget who you are. You don't have to be someone's biological mother to nurture a soul. But you do have the right to be respected, to be heard, and to be loved. Fairly and fully. Don't let silence become a habit that normalizes pain. Don't let kindness be mistaken for obligation. And don't be afraid to stand up, just to say one simple, powerful truth. I'm not your mother, but I'm the one who stayed when everyone else walked away. This is where today's story ends. If it moved you in any way, please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe so we can keep creating stories that matter. Thank you for listening. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.